For 60 years, humanity has pointed its biggest ears at the stars and listened for a single word back. And in 60 years, the universe has said nothing at all. Run the numbers honestly, and this galaxy should hold roughly 100,000 civilizations close enough to hear us, which makes the silence the strangest fact humanity has ever measured. Multiply the stars by the planets, by the odds of life, by the odds of minds, and the number never falls to zero. It climbs into the hundreds of thousands. Every one of those numbers assumes something out there is also listening back, an assumption the last 60 years of pointed silence has quietly and thoroughly demolished instead. Scientists call this gap the Great Silence, the distance between how loud the universe is required to be and how completely, perfectly quiet it has chosen to stay. Back at the station, the equipment never stops running, scanning a sky that statistically should have answered 1,000 times over by now, and somehow never once has. In 1977, a dish briefly caught 72 seconds of a signal so strange an astronomer circled the printout in red marker and said nothing else. That signal was never explained, and it was never heard again. Not that night, not in the 5 decades of listening that have followed it since. Not once. Case files fill drawers with decades of promising blips, each one investigated, each one eventually crossed out, until the folder of confirmed contact still sits completely, permanently empty. Red string connects every false alarm on the board, a map of near misses that traces beautifully everywhere and somehow still leads to exactly nowhere at all. Picture an ordinary evening at home, a television left glowing on static, because that hiss of noise is partly the leftover heat of the universe's own birth. That static on the screen is older than every civilization that has ever existed, and it has never once carried a signal that wasn't already accounted for. Back at the station, a light that had sat dark for years starts blinking, faint and irregular, as though something finally noticed it was being watched all along. The math still insists the galaxy should be crowded with voices, so scientists started asking a colder question. What if the silence itself is the actual answer? One theory calls it the Great Filter, a wall so lethal that almost nothing which starts down our path ever survives long enough to make it past. Every crossed-out case file might not be a false alarm at all. It might be a record of exactly how many civilizations reached this same wall first. The dish keeps listening anyway, aimed at a sky where the filter could already be behind every star we see, or waiting patiently just ahead of ours. The light on the recorder blinks faster now, a rhythm nobody programmed, while the tape keeps spooling forward into decades of listening that still find nothing new. The static on the screen flickers once, out of pattern, and for a half second it almost looks like it is trying to hold a shape. A second theory is colder still. It says the universe is not empty, it is simply silent on purpose, and silence like that is a survival strategy. Every civilization smart enough to build a telescope may also be smart enough to know that shouting into the dark only tells predators exactly where to aim. Under that theory, the archive is not a collection of failures. It is a record of everyone who listened first, and only then learned to stay quiet. The dish was built to speak as loudly as it listens, and under this theory, that single fact might be the most dangerous decision we ever made. The recorder's light stops blinking and turns to a fast, steady strobe, keeping time with a number nobody in that room wants to say out loud yet. Here is the number. For over a century, human radio signals have already been leaving Earth, in every direction, at the speed of light, uninvited and unstoppable. The reels spin faster now, chasing a signal that was never going to come from outside, because the loudest transmission in this story was always our own. That expanding sphere of our own broadcasts is already roughly 100 light-years wide, and there is no version of physics that lets us call it back. Somewhere past the edge of that sphere, our own signal keeps traveling outward through the dark, into exactly the kind of silence we always assumed was empty. The case was never unsolved, it was simply misfiled, because the silence was never a lack of an answer, it was a room full of listeners choosing not to speak. 60 years ago, we built an ear to listen for someone else, and it turns out the only thing it was ever going to hear back was us.